So this is the first exercise we went with today. So this is just really like more of a stabilizing, trying to find balance. How do we do so? What is the attacks? We start really simple. So as you can see right there, I start with just his hand holding on to the squat rack. Obviously, you do not need a specific squat rack. A kitchen counter, a handrail, obviously something that is secure would be wonderful. And then you see us doing some different, factors there. So whether it's him holding onto my hands, I'm not doing the arm wrestling grip like I referred to when we're doing the push press the first week. When he has less contact with my body, he has less of amount of grip. So he has to keep it within his, his hips. I tell him a lot to bring his energy back to his midsection. He's got 1 foot touching the ground. And that's really, it's not just the tiny foot muscles that are keeping his whole, body weight up. It's bringing it back to his core, trying to fire, embrace the areas around that core area, kind of the stomach spots, the lateral sides of the body, and even his glutes and his hips and stuff too. So, there's a lot of action going on here. What I'm trying to portray to him is, just try to find it to be comfortable. Don't over tense, try to find a relaxed spot from the foot up to the hands. And then obviously I have a dowel piece there too, to give him a little bit of assistance just in case. This exercise is hard no matter who you are. I think everybody should almost warm up with this on a daily basis, as, it's really, a lot of us become dominant to one side or the other. As a right-handed individual, a lot of times we're better planting on our left foot, and that's anybody and everybody. So these exercises on like a regular basis, I think I've mentioned it before, that the WD-40 is what I refer to it as. It just kind of loosens up the joints and get things moving a little bit better for, a normal activity outside. We're gonna go to the second exercise here. This is Bill doing some side walks. So people have probably seen something relatively familiar or similar, whether it is maybe PT. This is working some outside hip muscles, as we have our long bones in our leg, we have muscles, really surrounding all the way around it that help support it to stay in the middle. As we go left and right, as you can see him kind of push against the band, he's working some outside hip muscles that help kind of control the leg to push it out, and then really just to kind of keep the balance in the center so that the big muscles can move us forward and backwards. I know that's a lot of words, so please Hello, Bill. How are you? I didn't know you were with us today.
I'm here. I don't know if you could see the stick, but Mitch is still menacing me with the stick, even though it's not in view of the camera, and that helps my performance.
The stick is laying on the ground right there. I can see. No, it's a good exercise. Bill, what do you feel here when we use that band there to go side steps? Does that give you a better feel of activation somewhere? What's kind of your feedback with this?
Oh, Bill, you're on mute.
It's definitely harder. It's definitely harder to work against the band. The hip abduction is really pronounced, but it's good to have something to resist against.
Yep,
it's hard to maintain balance. It's challenging. This is challenging.
Yeah. And this is definitely on the more progressive side of this exercise here. You can do something a little bit more simple, just laying on the ground, on your side and lifting your hip. You can have someone put their hand on top of your, ankle while you're trying to lift it up for resistance. There's a lot of goes to this exercise here too. But one thing that is very important is to try to trigger some of those outside supportive hip muscles. This is almost something that I call, with a lot of my clients, I call it a drill for a skill. So let's say his skill is to stand up a little better. And I think that he is not being supported enough in his outside hips. I would do this exercise first, and then we would progress into just doing a squat, whether it was from a chair, a box, or if he could control his own body weight, or you as an individual can control your own body weight, that's fantastic. The less crutch or, kind of cheat that we use, the harder it's going to be and the more beneficial it'll be for your body to learn as well. So great exercise here. Relatively simple. Do be careful while putting the band on. Probably the best suggestion there is to sit down and then allow that to go around the feet and get comfortable, and then take your stand up from there. The bands do have different resistance. I will get a lot of these bands just from Amazon. They're usually about, maybe $10 for 5 packs of them, and they are different resistance. So use one where you're comfortable. We want to find some activation, but you don't want it to be the craziest thing you've ever done. Be comfortable with it and then move on from there. We'll go to our next exercise here. It's going to be a twist, a cable twist. We've done something similar a few weeks ago where I had a little bit of a high to low twist. This is just a straight across a horizontal twist. What I'm trying to find, Bill, is to create power into the ground. So I will tell him a lot of times to, we're encouraged to try to rotate that back foot. The back foot is tough for him. As soon as he rotates that back foot, it's a change of direction. So he usually loses a little balance there. The idea is to create that change of direction, to be comfortable with it. As a beginning stage, keep the one foot planted and just twist across. You're trying to use some of the rotators to the sides of right above our hips, and try to make it to the point where I'll tell him as well, he's got the weight and resistance in his hands, try to bring the energy and the force back to the midsection, back from the legs and the hips. It's not just the hands creating that power. Bill, any feedback on here? When you make twists like that left and right, and the body kind of gets disoriented as to, especially depending on how much resistance we have there, does it create a better center of mass, a little bit better proprioception as to where you're at?
Well, you have to maintain. You can generate some force sitting down, and you don't have to worry about balance. So you may not be able to generate as much force sitting down, but it's harder standing up. It's harder doing this, shifting the weight and moving around without losing balance. So I see this as helping my overall balance.
Absolutely. I would agree. Bill, what would you say with the sense of, the biggest thing you were concerned with, and why, why did you want more balance? And then not just from the lack of falling, but, what kind of activities did you find that became a little bit more doable with balance, or even just kind of everyday activities, not necessarily, hobbies?
Well, just moving around in a room, I would tend to, prior to this, spend most of my time leaning against walls rather than even standing or walking slowly. And so I really appreciate the ability to move and feel steady on my feet without having to lean or sit down.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's awesome, Bill. Very awesome. And I do want to point out real fast, Bill might be mad at me for saying this, but I want to say I mentioned this, that he had a goal of going up a large hill here in Portland. It's one of our Northwest hills, and it leads up to a big mansion called the Pittock Mansion, very historical here in Portland. Bill chose to not just do it once, but, he thought he would do it twice. And, it's just so awesome. It's so awesome to see some of the motivation. I want to thank some of you guys as well of having the interest in this program. It gives us both motivation here too, keeps us rolling the dice like the way I'm trying to teach to all my clients and to you guys too, that consistency is key. Motivation comes from all sorts of different areas, and we need to find that. And I was so just delighted to hear Bill say that he made it up twice. He did say he was sore. He was fatigued. He pushed himself into an uncomfortable zone. But some of these exercises, go ahead, Bill.
For the next couple of days, I was pretty wasted. I couldn't do very much. So I'm hoping that in the future I'll be able to get more, a rather more rapid recovery, and able to do the same climb twice, or maybe even more climbs, without having to recover over subsequent days. But that was hard.
Absolutely. But regardless, though, it's awesome. It was a great accomplishment on that end, physically and mentally. So had to bring that up today. We're going to go to the next exercise here. What's that, Bill?
That was very nice.
Oh, hey man, I was proud of you. It's good stuff. We got to highlight some of the good moments as well. We're gonna go to the next exercise, Bill. Here, I want you to explain this one a little bit. This is our farmer carry. Why do we do this here, Bill?
Mitch has a lot of equipment that he wants me to organize in his studio. So this is just basically payback.
I'm just having him move my stuff around for me.
Yeah.
Honestly, though, that really is a little bit of the fact. It's called a farmer carry. You move the weight. What's the weight doing though, there, Bill?
So the weight is an asymmetric load, and I have to maintain balance while carrying something heavy on one side. Often when you're carrying a shopping bag or something,
Yep,
it's not going to be
absolutely.
a balanced load. So this is an exaggeration of a routine activity. And if you can do it
Absolutely.
with a heavy weight, then it's all the more easy to do it with a lighter weight.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah. So that weight is 26 pounds. You know, a lot of what I will kind of paint for the pictures is to keep your hips level. As we're walking, we don't want our hips to be thrown off by the 26 pounds or whatever weight you choose. Sometimes the light weight, the brain doesn't feel it quite enough. So really, you know, jumping up to a decent weight is not necessarily a horrible thing. You know, we don't want to shrug that weight. We don't want our shoulder to be up in our ear. We want to be holding it to our side, almost like we're holding a suitcase. And you know, the hips stay neutral, and so do the feet. The feet is the other cue that I use a lot with this one. Obviously, you know, a little bit more of a challenge for Bill there. You know, the braces are helping there too. You know, we got to think about foot gait. You know, a tripod is something I refer to a lot. Me and my you know coworkers here at Ramp Fitness, you know, tripod is huge. It's the big toe, small toe, and heel. You know, and we can keep those actions, you know, pressing down into the ground. We're creating a pretty good line of muscle activation up too, which is very important when we're starting with the only things touching the ground are our feet. We want to start with a pretty good force output down. So great exercise here. You know, I've had a lot of people talk about the farmer carries and why they're good. You'll see people do it at the gym a lot nowadays. Of just taking big loops and they just have weight in their hand. You know, I've always bring this story up as well. I had a good buddy whose dad wasn't doing too well. His doctor prescribed to just carry weight around his farm. You know, a lot of us necessarily might not do that exercise list with 20 exercises on it. So something kind of basic like that, it goes a long ways, you know. So when our body learns how to handle the forces from each side and balance it out, we become a little stronger and some more supporting muscles are with us all day, which is very important. So this is a great exercise here.
Mitch, I have a question from Janet Schuster. She writes, just curious, Bill, do you suffer from postural lordosis? Have these exercises helped? Yes, I do have lumbar lordosis, and many of the exercises that Mitch has helped me with have strengthened my abdominal muscles and some of the core muscles. But maybe Mitch can address that further. And then Janet asked, am I wearing something on my feet over my socks? Those are some braces that I've designed that help me maintain stability. That it helps cock up my foot, but it does not fuse the joint. Essentially, it allows passive range of motion in dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, gives me some lateral stability and pulls my foot up. I can talk more about braces if people are interested.
Yeah, the braces absolutely are awesome. You know, I think it's a big assistance. I have seen Bill do it without the braces though, and I can't say he still does. He's still able to do it. It's much more of a assistance rather than, you know, a complete reliance on it. You know, it does assist, like I said, but we don't work out very often without the braces. So, you know, I think we're a little bit maybe possibly unfamiliar with how it would be on a couple of exercises. But, you know, kind of going back to the idea of what Bill talked about with the lordosis, and, you know, I just want to make something kind of clear is that, you know, there's not one exercise that's going to fix everybody's, you know, either faults, whether it's a lumbar lordosis or we have some kind of a kyphotic, which is a higher spine, you know, curvature. There's a lot of things that can happen in the human body. We have a lot of bones and a lot of muscles there, 200 plus bones. So we're controlling things all the time. You know, what I've learned with the FSH is that, you know, a lot of it can be different for each individual. It's very asymmetrical on that sorts too. So, you know, I want you guys to have as many, you know, tools rather in your tool bag. And that's one of the big things too, is this is a lifestyle change that we're trying to create here. So, you know, having just the 5 exercises that, you know, are being sold to you saying this is what's going to work forever. They are still great exercises, but I just want to say, like, from what I've had from experience, it doesn't work for, accountability necessarily to the person, and having a good time with it. Our attention span kind of gets, we get bored of exercises rather. So having a whole bunch of different things that approach is great. More so having the understanding as to why we're doing it and how we want our body to work is really the big thing as well. And that's what a trainer should be teaching you. That's what a physiotherapist, physical therapist is going to help you with. They're all very knowledgeable. And the biggest part too, like I've said, is communication, giving them feedback, giving them, how it feels, what you have struggles with, the certain muscles that you would really, think are going to be beneficial. Give them as much feedback about what your life is like, what you need to do more, what you want to do more. Bill gave me a couple things right away, and we attacked it right away. Obviously, there's some things that are very important, but there's also some things that are very important just to the individual, and that's also a way to keep people, consistent and actually staying with it. It's hard to exercise. It's a lot easier to not. And trust me, I get that. So we all need to remember that part.
I want to
Go ahead,
expand on the question of lumbar lordosis. When I first started working with Mitch, I was bothered by the lumbar lordosis. And my idea was, well, I may not be able to do much about it, but at least I can work on strengthening muscles that are not affected with dystrophy. And sure enough, we did strengthen core muscle groups, but the specific lower abdominal muscles, which were dystrophic and which I think are a big factor in contributing to the lumbar lordosis, even those we were able to strengthen. You want to speak about specifically about how to strengthen those muscles, Mitch?
Yeah, I'm actually sitting here and thinking about that. As we took our week off, we have an extra week of videos, and that was our week that we went over the dead bugs. So we'll have to do that next week, and we'll have to go over a little bit more of that specifically. So Bill and I went about 2 weeks ago now. We filmed kind of that question that people had a lot regarding the low back pain and lumbar lordosis specifically. So a lot of it has to do with that laying on your back position that I showed a few weeks ago. The simple version is if your knees are bent, your feet are flat on the floor, and you're all the way on your back, our natural curvature of our low spine goes upwards towards the ceiling or the sky, just naturally, not a ton, but naturally. And so when it's hyperlordosis and it's going too far, that's when it, is extending even further up towards the spine. And so weaker lower abdominal muscles is a lot of times the factor of that one. So if we can lay on our back and try to flatten our spine to the ground, you should feel some of those core muscles activate. And that's a great way of getting that muscle, kind of section of our body to turn on, activate, and feel the control that is needed to control the spine in the lower pelvic area. So we're going to have to go more into that detail next week because we already have those videos filmed. So I would love to try to hold off too much more because we do have some specific things to go over with that, in regards for next week.
Okay. There's another question here, Mitch, and maybe you can help with answering this question. I think I can help a little as well. The person states, I struggle with joint area inflammation after even some low impact lifts. What would you suggest for specifically elbow and shoulder areas where muscle deterioration is present to still have mobility in those areas with low pain and even longevity? I can address what Mitch has done with me with shoulder pain following exercise, not so much with elbow pain. So sometimes, especially after internal rotation at the shoulder against resistance exercises, I would have shoulder pain for up to a few days after the fact. And Mitch was able to stretch and use this Hypervolt massage device to relieve some of that discomfort and also do some range of motion exercises. Could you review that, Mitch?
Yeah, let me touch base on that real quickly. This is another question where I could probably sit here and talk for about an hour. I'm going to go quickly on that and say there's 206 bones and 610-ish plus muscles. So when we break that down to our body, there is a lot of muscles everywhere. So when we go from our forearm and then our upper arm, which is the two spots that are kind of separating the elbow, there's a lot of muscles that are also feeding into that joint. So it can be a disuse. One of my favorite analogies, I get it from one of my mentors, his name is Dr. Aaron Horscheg. He kind of puts the idea of like a cell phone tower. So when you have a cell phone tower sitting there and you have a cable on one side, you probably need to have a cable on the other side to give that support system so the cell phone tower is not pulled one way or the other. Then obviously, if we have a forward backwards, we're going to need some more angles because it has the ability of falling other directions too. Well, with our shoulder joint, we have the ability of doing something called a circumduction. It's from the ball and socket. So what that means is we can pretty much create and make almost a full circle. So there's a lot of muscles that then attach that area and attach these bones to make the actions that we demand them to do all the time. Bringing this to a more simple version, you might just need to activate some of the brothers and the sisters that work together. Example really quickly is a bicep and a tricep. Most people know where their bicep is and most people know where their tricep is. If not, the bicep is in the front of the arm bone and then the tricep is in the back. Well, those muscles control opposite actions. If we bend our elbow and bring our hand to our shoulder, that's a bicep movement. If we bring our hand away from our shoulder, rather the opposite, that's more of a tricep action. And if one of those, let's go back to the cell phone tower, if one of those cables is short and pulling the other one, it's going to give agitation and put wear and tear as to where it's connected. So when that means more of the elbow joint. It's susceptible to being inflamed, arthritic. Anything itis is relatively just inflammation. And a lot of the times that can be from, like I said, the underuse of a muscle, possibly the overuse of a muscle. But if you're not doing anything and you're going, well, I didn't overuse it, that could just be the sense of it's literally just underused. And maybe without you noticing it, your elbows are bent most of the day, putting the bicep muscle, the front of the arm bone, short. It's going to pull if you ever try to go long, and it might not know how. So we all have muscles that our muscles attach to our bones with something called a tendon, and the tendons can get inflamed too and create pain in a specific area. It's called referred pain. Sometimes where it hurts is not always where the issue is. And I know that's a lot of words, but I tried to make that as simple as possible. There is a lot of answers and possibilities to fixing people's pain. So you have to assess and talk with somebody that has an idea of how each joint and muscle could be contributing to the issue.
Yeah, I want to add to that, Mitch. In the shoulder, often when people have weakness in the shoulder musculature, the natural response is to not use the shoulder, and then
Right.
with use, you can get decreased range of motion and inflammation, sort of like an adhesive capsulitis following stroke or injury or
Yep.
weakness of those muscles. And even though it's counterintuitive, the treatment is often increasing range of motion at the joint and working to strengthen those muscles, even though short term it may aggravate pain. But that's
Yeah.
something to talk to your trainer or PT or doctor about.
Yep. Absolutely. I totally agree with Bill there. It's there's oftentimes it's not just the one exercise that's going to fix it all. So that's what I want you to remember. There's a lot of different approaches that can bring similar results. Just have the idea as to what your body is trying to do and try to control the resistance. The professional should be able to help you kind of depict which muscles it is that might be bringing that as to an issue, whether one is weak or one is just overactive. So be proactive there and try to move your own body maybe and see if one feels really difficult. That could be a little answer. Maybe you've got some, inside knowledge now to be able to present that to the PT. Obviously, yes, continue asking questions and we'll give you as much feedback there as possible. One thing I did want to say is, with the elbow pain, my first idea is possibly not moving the elbow. So Bill mentioned the Hypervolt. It is a soft tissue massage gun. Soft tissue work, releasing of the soft tissue is very beneficial. It allows for blood flow to come in. Blood is, a lot of times what kind of cleans up the garbage rather when it's come into our muscles and, things inside of our body, and it rebuilds, just to keep it simple there. So creating blood flow is fantastic. I would not say the foam rolling is the answer. It's more so, it opens up the abilities to find the next answer and the next step in getting the body to move better. Isometric contractions are a good one. An isometric contraction is when you're using the muscle without the joint actually moving. So I'm going to give you the example with a bicep and a tricep again. If I had Bill standing tall with his hands right next to his hips, and I put my hand on his wrist and his palm was faced towards me, and he tried to do a bicep curl, but he didn't move, it would activate the bicep, but his elbow would be stationary. So there's a lot of motions that you can do there, to build up shoulder stability. PTs will do that with you. If you go into a door frame and you push your elbow into the door frame, it's working one of our rotator cuff muscles. Obviously, you cannot push your elbow through the door frame unless you are very strong. So it's activating the muscle without moving it. And sometimes that is also a good approach to helping certain muscles activate without necessarily making them more irritated if it is a arthritic area within the joint.
Here, Mitch, I've got another question. Nicole asks, is it better to exercise all of the muscles in every workout or to focus in just one group at a time, arms, legs, abs, etc.?
I think my simplest answer there, which I think it's a great question, so do not feel like I'm trying to just make it simple because it's a bad question there. Oftentimes if we're looking for demands of just moving more efficiently, we are not going to isolate very often. So even if we just, let's say we're getting out of bed and we need to use the restroom in the middle of the night, well, there's not very many times where I'm going to say, just use your right bicep. Don't use your other side of your body. You're going to demand your whole body to move. So there is a time and a place 100% to isolate muscles that maybe are not working. But then once those isolated muscles kind of turn on, I think it's very important to include compound movements, and compound movements is a movement that is, for the most part, is including multiple muscle groups. When we are moving through daily life, I would say we use more of the time multiple muscle groups than we do just one muscle specifically. But like I said, there is a time and a place. So the bigger part to that, I think, is to have an intent. If you are doing an isolated muscle group and I came up and asked you why, I would want you to have some kind of a reason. Don't do it just to, say I want my biceps to look better. And that's fine. Do me and Bill do that? Yes, we do. So do not get me wrong. It's okay to do. But I also do it for Bill for when he does a pull, like a row. So we will isolate the biceps, and then maybe I will put him onto a row machine or a TRX. A TRX is those straps that Bill was doing and those swings with in week 2, and do a row, which is a pulling mechanism, or a pulling action, and pulling his body up. His back muscles are primary, meaning number 1, but his biceps are secondary. I want the biceps to work. And if they didn't work beforehand, hopefully they're activated now, and then we do them then. So like I said, there's a time and a place to do isolation, but I think it's also really, really great to have a plan and have an intent for why you're doing that. And hopefully that kind of answers that question. But Bill, I do want to get through the rest of these videos as I got a couple of other awesome ones that are pretty cool. So this was his pull down here. The double arm pull down is a little tougher for Bill, as he cannot, create any kind of rotation. So it's bringing both of those arms down and making the lats. It's a lot of a lat dominant exercise, which is a muscle that connects a lot of our shoulder girdles down to our hips. Very strong muscle, primary muscle in the body, and a great one to have to be activated for support and posture.
And you make it even tougher by having me balance on one knee.
Very true. Yeah, we did not start there. Where was our start there, Bill? Were we sitting down more so?
We were sitting on a bench, and that made it easier. And doing it unilaterally makes it easier still. because as you
And,
said, I can
yep.
generate some force with the rotation, which I don't
Yep.
have here.
And unilaterally meaning just one arm. So when he has that one arm, he's able to rotate a tad bit more. This is called bilateral, being both of the limbs moving at the same time. So it kind of takes away the ability of throwing in a rotation here. And this is harder for him, but I will say again, he has improved greatly. Go ahead and slide to the next one here. This is one that we've been wanting to show for a while. We've had a couple of videos here. I didn't want to post a whole bunch of videos with a different shirt color for him, so I wanted to make it seem like we did it all in one day. So we re-filmed this one, which is, you know, it looks even better. He's just getting more and more exercise or repetitions in. This is 26 pounds. A couple weeks ago, we had 35. So we had done quite a bit of volume here. So I didn't really want to, you know, load them up too much. We don't want to go into an overuse state. So this is 26 pounds. We went a little bit higher repetition. Bill's capacity on this one, I would say, is around 48 pounds at probably about a 5 to 6 rep count for a good reps. You know, I don't really necessarily count the ones that I'm not really too fond of because we're looking for quality as well. Quality is key, not just that, you know, quantitative measurement. Numbers are good, but we want to see them being done correctly so we can build some good patterns. Absolutely. So, you know, after we create some force, I like doing the strength assets a little bit towards the middle to the maybe middle thirds of the workout, and then going into a little bit more of a functional move. This one, of course, I was hoping it wouldn't be more of myself, but you can see us both doing this. It's a lateral and reverse lunge. So it's fast pace. I'm making him stick up with my pace here. Sorry, this is kind of the same issue that we had with the ball slams a couple weeks ago. It takes away a little bit of the crop size here. You can see Bill at the very beginning, but like I said, it's functional. We're trying to make him repeat and move quickly and stay up with my pace. We kind of start a little slower and then just go faster and faster as we get through the actual exercise. Excuse me.
This is very difficult for me, but I think it's among the most useful things that we do, because how can I respond rapidly to a change in my gait or maneuvering around something that falls in front of me? This I think is super helpful in avoiding falls and making me feel more confident walking outside.
I totally agree. Yeah. So it's been, you know, I will say this to quite a few clients that have a question or a goal to try to do. And if their goal pertains something different, you know, I'll just kind of bring up a simple fact of, if you train fast, you're going to be able to move fast. If you train slow, your body is going to be used to moving slow. So once again, there's a time and a place to moving a little slower, creating good patterns, making sure the brain understands the pattern we're trying to establish and, you know, paint. But if we all of a sudden are, you know, if we have not established that pattern and then we just go fast, for one, we're putting ourselves into a higher, you know, risk for injury rather, and then we're just creating things that we don't want to do. We're not going to be able to actually have our maximal strength or our maximal ability of doing things if we're doing things wrong. And there is a correct order of operations similar to a math problem, like I will say to people too. So, great stuff, Bill. It's a good little, you know, routine there. We're going to refresh real fast. You know, we went from a stability exercise. Bill had a couple of different variations there, making him try to find, you know, equal and neutral with the core braced. Moved into a lateral step, working the outside hip muscles. Going into a little twist, rotating into the hip muscles. So those outside hip muscles that we just activated are present right here. If I was to make him rotate the foot, they would be even more. We got the farmer carry there, kettlebell to one side. You can obviously do a double. It just makes it harder, but it's not necessarily as asymmetrical as you are relatively balanced. There's a lot of factors you can do there. If you did one side that was heavier than the other, that is also difficult. You got to maintain the position that we're trying to maintain to keep it neutral. Good lat pull down here. A lot of stability having to come from having a kneeling position. and great response from a little bit of some pulling muscles, which is a lot of those muscles that he's using right now. If we bend over and grab something on the ground, a lot of those muscles become very active. So this is a good exercise to kind of tie that together. Moving that into then, pulling something off the ground, which we already activated some of the leg muscles, and now he's got his upper arms working together. The legs are making a push down, the arms are making a pull up, and then tie in the core together. Then we move into that functional spot where it's a little faster pace, making him try to stay up with it and be comfortable with the new, whether it's a movement pattern or, like I said, the pace, the tempo of it, or even just the repetition for endurance. That's fantastic. Very nice, Bill.
Thank you, Mitch. I really appreciate all you've done for me.
Absolutely.
I mean, one of the things I was just thinking about this, what's the benefit to me of being able to do some of these movements? Well, one fear I used to have is I would have this sense of immobility in my sleep. Like I wouldn't be able to turn over. I would be afraid that I couldn't get the covers off of me. And when you're sleeping or near sleep, you're feeling more vulnerable. With the increased strength in my arms, that's no longer an issue. I can reposition my body. I can throw the covers off. I can reach more. It's been a big help, and it's really good for my sense of well-being, not just physical well-being.
Hey, Bill, there's a question for you, and you kind of already have answered a bit of it, but are there any particular activities of just daily living that have significantly improved with these exercise sessions? And could you give an example?
Well, I have a hard time negotiating stairs, and it's a lot easier now in my house, unfortunately, which we're going to need to move out of at some point. There's 42 steps to the front door, and so we put in handrails, and that's helped. But if it were not for some of these exercises, I think I wouldn't be able to live in the house.
And I'm telling you right now, I've been to Bill's house, and those 42 steps are not small steps.
And then putting things away, reaching cabinets. I couldn't do that before. And it was something that I had asked Mitch to maintain a secret so that my wife couldn't use this as an excuse to have me do dishes. But the secret
did come to my head, but I wasn't going to blow the secret right now, though.
But wife is coming in with a few more things that he can do.
Hello, Judy.
Hello. Hi, Mitch. He now drinks differently, lifts the cup up to his face, rather his face down to the cup. And he can pass things across the table more readily. If somebody says, pass me this, it used to be I used to pass it, but now he can do it.
Wow, that's really cool, Bill.
So that's these are wonderful little milestones. I mean, usually, I'm 57 at this stage of the game, even without muscular dystrophy, you'd think the goal is to preserve, but I'm actually seeing improvement. And that is making me so hopeful. I wish others could share in that sense of optimism that I have about this.
Absolutely. Well, very, very neat, Bill.
Bill, it's June. I don't know if you addressed this when you're talking about changes you saw in activities of daily living. There's a question about what about being able to sit up from a chair or a sofa? Have you seen improvements in that?
Well, certainly a lot of the exercises that we do are to strengthen abdominal muscles, core muscles, hip girdle muscles, and include squats against resistance. So if I can come up from a low position with weight, then it's much easier for me to come up from a low position without weight. So that's one of the principles of, I guess, resistance training. You're taxing yourself more so that at more routine times it's less effortful, and you're growing that way. So yes, it's easier for me to get up out of a couch, get up off a chair without using my arms to push off. And now I can even use my arms to push off, which I wasn't able to do earlier. So in both senses, I could do it. I can also get up off the floor more readily than I was able to before. It used to be a bit of an ordeal, and I had to climb up my body, gower a little bit, or pull up on furniture. But now I can do it without all those incremental steps. And so I'm more confident. If I were to fall down, and because I'm more likely to do stuff outside and on irregular surfaces and engage more in the world, I'm not surprised if I do fall down. I can pick myself up again.
Yep.
That's tremendous. That's a big one.
Yeah. Very
So, well, we could go on. Oh, there's one more question. Let's see. We could go on and on for. Oh, just somebody saying that's great to hear. It is great to hear.
Yes, I
Thank
agree.
you. So,
I want this for other people. I believe that sometimes, there's this expectation and hope that the research is going to provide an answer in the form of a pill, an injection, some sort of treatment, but active self-help in the form of exercise cannot be underestimated in terms of its ability to improve our function.
absolutely, absolutely, and bravo to that. There's someone asking if you're, Bill, if you're open to receiving email. I think Mitch's email is posted on our website. I wasn't sure about yours, but we can certainly.
I'm happy to have my email posted as well.
Okay.
To answer questions.
Fantastic. Okay.
There's another question. Do we have time? What's
Yeah, sure. Go. Yes, certainly.
So Bob Bailey writes, I most often fall when I step backwards or pivot. I can see where the lunge exercise would help. Do you have other exercises to recommend? Well, Bob, are you using braces when you're stepping backwards, or are the brace, if you are wearing braces, do you find that they're pushing you backwards? Because that's a problem I had with certain type of braces. And I'll take that response later. No, he's not using braces, but when he steps backwards or pivots, he has falls. Mitch, how else would you address that?
I mean, my first thing that I would go with is, trying to create just some kind of stability. Something simple that comes to mind right away is to have somebody, depending on where your ability is, but it's to stand tall and have someone try to either push you forward or push you backwards, and try to maintain that. Because as soon as we don't have that force and we can kind of keep it, we're going to become stronger. If you go to one leg, have the same thing. And when I say have someone push you, it's very, very light. Or even maybe just hold the hand, and me and Bill will do that tug of war with the stick, and it creates a little bit more of an activation of his core. That's a big part. So when a force is being, put upon you, you're going to create another, just kind of that force and reaction type deal there. You're going to create, more activation somewhere. And a lot of times it comes from the core. Another thing that comes to mind is like I call it the walking chest openers. And so those straps that Bill and I used when we did our swings, I would have him stand with them, hands straight in front, and he would just walk forward until his arms opened up out to a T, and then walk backwards. And it allows him to create a little bit of proprioception of using his hands on the straps, and then it just creates a little bit of a better and more stability of a walking gait as well, which, really, I think the biggest part of us losing balance most of the time is just the disuse and not doing things like we used to do when we were kids.
Mitch, also, you broke down the lunge for me in multiple little modules. I did not do it initially without balance support. I didn't do it as far. You would be the support, or a rod fixed to that, I don't even know what you call that device, a horizontal fixed bar.
The dowel piece, yeah.
Would be my support. And so I wouldn't have to worry about balance and the motion. So I could learn the motion
Right.
and then develop the balance, and then maybe do a similar motion with partial balance support on the TRX straps, and then take away a little bit more.
Exactly.
Uh,
And
so those
that's going to be what I
incremental
referenced earlier with the drills and the skills. So when you have a skill, if your skill is to just really have, a walking backwards, better balance, or being able to do a lunge, like you kind of referenced there, break it down. So, Bill and I would start with one knee down and one leg forward, and he's in the lunge position and just sit there. And then I might come up to him and kind of, sometimes I'd kind of joke with him, maybe push him a little harder, but, give him a little bit of a nudge with my hip. And then
I have the
what
bruises.
happens?
I have the bruises to prove it.
I had a feeling you were going to come back with something there. No, we have fun. We have a good time, and honestly, sometimes even just like playing catch, those ball tosses that we do, if, doing it from a lunge position, which we have not done yet. So Bill, anticipate that next time,
Thanks.
it's creating new exercises for the body to have to adapt to. Bill and I have been doing this for 4+ years now. So, or around 4 years. So, he's got a lot of repetition. We did not start, with these exercises. You've got to find, and so when I break it down, the drill to fit the skill, the drills can be super simple, and it's even just like, at the resistance, like the isometric resistance. If you can't throw your arm up, just try to push against someone's hand, create some muscle activation. And then maybe in a little while, you're able to lift your arm. Then in a little while, you're able to throw a ball with your arm. And it's really just having those stages and steps to get you to a little bit more of an end result. And that's where short-term and long-term goals can be, really valid as well.
All right. There's a question here. How often do you guys meet and for how long?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Bill.
I initially started once a week with Mitch, and we had some periods where I didn't attend. I think up to 3 months where I stopped. And then, is it about a year now that we've been doing twice a week sessions? And it's more than double the rate of improvement. I think that for me at that point, I got more than double the effect by doubling the frequency.
How long are your sessions?
A little shy of
Depends
an
on
hour.
how much. Depends on how much we talk sometimes. Because Bill and I can definitely get into some conversations, but for the most part, I do want to actually, kind of touch base on that. Do not think that we need to be spending hours and hours a day. Sometimes there's a lot of little creative things that can kind of keep us moving as well. And I've heard small things of like, setting an alarm on your phone for maybe every 2 hours, you get up and do your WD-40, or maybe your 3 exercises for Thursday, and then you have different ones for Tuesday. I would encourage most people to try to move at first at least twice a week, and then eventually, on a good program and your body's a little bit more used to it and having good feedback from it as well, try to move more out of the week than you don't. So that means 4 out of 7 days. If your body craves it and likes it and wants more, it's going to tell it that, and you're going to do it more. So start, with 2, I think is great. And when it goes to the time duration, have it be anywhere from 15 to maybe 25 minutes when you're at home. If you're feeling really good and you want to push it more, go ahead. More than an hour, I don't think is too necessary. I think just more so the consistency is key.
So Bill, in addition to sessions with Mitch, do you do stuff at home on a regular basis and in between?
I'm not as good as I could be in terms of doing the exercise at home.
Well, that's nice to know.
It's real. Judy is very, very active and very fit, and I'm trying to keep up with her. So I am doing it at least 2 to 3 times a week on my own, and then I try to do something aerobic on a, if not daily, almost daily basis. It's either walking on the treadmill, or if the weather is good, I have a recumbent tricycle. So I don't need to maintain balance, and I don't need to have strong triceps in order to brake safely on a recumbent tricycle. And I use that, and I get a good aerobic leg workout.
Yep,
very
absolutely. We're all very habitual. So I think just more so, creating the good habits, and eventually when you do it long enough, you start craving them. And, that can be the same thing of whether it's your favorite food, you start craving it because your body is giving yourself good feedback of, oh man, I felt really good when I ate that. That was awesome. And so Bill does that same thing when he works out. or let's put it to the other side, when he doesn't work out, you know, we also feel that. We feel the difference. We don't feel as good. We don't feel as on top of it. Our balance might not feel as good. So, you know, we start doing things because of the correlation that we also make there too. So as you start to put it in consistency, you know, I really do. I believe that you're going to feel some good effects from it, and you're going to want to do it more. And that is key as well. You know, making the person have to crave it and want to do it really makes the attention be a little bit more there too, which is key. So with me and my clients, I really don't force, you know, I'm not telling them that they need to be here 5 days a week and see you at 9 a.m. You know, it really needs to be also with you. It's a, you know, 2-person party there, and it has to be on both ends.
I really look forward to the sessions, and I get a lot of positive feedback from seeing progress, and I enjoy hanging out with Mitch. So this is a good thing for me. I'm real grateful.
That's great. Well, we enjoy hanging out with you, and we have used up another hour without without it seeming that way, because it's so much fun to listen to you guys. So I'll let Beth come back in to say a few closing words.
Yes. Awesome. I just love these sessions. Thank you guys so much.
Absolutely.
And we actually have Bill and Mitch for the next few Mondays. Next Monday, the 8th, the 15th, and the 22nd, they will be joining us. So we have them for 3 more weeks. So tune in next Monday to see them. Also, they're going to be on Tim Hollenbach's FSHD Society radio show Wednesday night. That's at 8 o'clock Central, or right? Yeah, 8 o'clock Central, right. 6 o'clock Pacific. On Facebook Live. So you get another chance to see Bill and Mitch on Facebook Live on Wednesday night. And then our webinar on our original webinar for Thursdays, we have another special guest this coming Thursday. I'm going to say his last name wrong, but Dr. Pharmakidis, I think is his name, from the University of Kansas Medical Center. He's going to be talking about maximizing home safety, so once you get your body safe and walking and not falling, then you want to maximize the safety if you're at your home as well. So
Cool.
it's going to be a really great webinar. So you guys, once again, thank you so much for joining us, and
Absolutely.
we will look forward to seeing you again next Monday. All right. Thank you
We'll
guys.
be here.
All right. Take care of
Bye-bye.
yourselves.